Hey guys, you're listening to the PetaPixel podcast where we talk about all the latest news in the photographic industry and more. But if you're looking for expert advice, incredible selection, and the best deals on photographic equipment, video, lighting, and more, you go to B&H. B&H is PetaPixel's new gear partner. And for even greater savings at B&H, we recommend the B&H Payboo Credit Card, which lets you save the tax. You pay the tax and B&H pays you back instantly. Save the tax on all eligible purchases shipped to eligible states. Or you can pay over time with our 6 and 12-month financing on minimum purchases of $199 for 6 months or $599 for 12 months. Terms apply. Learn more at bhphoto.com/payboo. Credit card offers are always subject to credit approval. Payboo Credit Card Accounts are issued by Comenity Capital Bank.
Hey, I'd love to say that this is a special episode of the PetaPixel podcast, but every PetaPixel podcast is special. And it's special because I'm joined by Chris Nichols and Jaron Schneider. How's it going, guys?
Good.
Just fine, thank you. Good to see you guys.
Interesting thing to talk about today.
Yeah, later in this episode, we're going to talk about the upcoming Netflix documentary, The Stringer. We got early access to it, but we're also joined by editor Matt Grokut to take a look at, he's really dug deep into this story. He has some insight Chris and I don't have because we just watched the film and been keeping up on the news. So we're going to really dive deep into it. It was a fantastic conversation, so I'm looking forward to everyone hearing that. And we've got some news stories as well. A little bit's been going on. But before we get to that, I just want to know, I love documentary films. Guys, what is the most recent documentary that you have loved that's like a masterpiece, 10 out of 10 kind of doc? And maybe it's The Stringer. Who knows? We can talk about that here.
Well, I don't know that I rate documentaries because I don't watch enough of them to say like, I rate this a 10 out of 10. But one that stuck with me and one that like I was sobbing through was Blackfish.
Oh God.
Yeah, so that one was exceptionally successful, I think, in its mission to make me want to save all the whales. And when we were in Alaska, we actually saw whales like
Everywhere.
Orca out there, like jumping, breaching, like that was like, I don't know, I almost cried again. So like, yeah, I think Blackfish is for me.
This isn't my pick, but I have to say, like the day after I was married, like the next morning, we had a little time before we had to go to the airport. So my wife and I watched The Cove about Japanese people murdering dolphins.
Again, more dead whales.
Huge mistake.
Wow.
Colossal mistake. A real buzz killer.
Bro. I can't remember like the last 10 out of 10 documentary, honestly. I mean, obviously there's like the old classics and stuff, but the most recent ones that come to mind that I watched were actually like really sensational, silly ones. I don't remember the title, but certainly the one about the fire festival was pretty...
I haven't seen that one, but yeah. I've read about it.
It's pretty nuts.
Fire Island?
Yeah, like, I mean, there was a few. So to be fair, there was a few. So I can't, but I mean, the whole story was very engrossing and gross. Another one that comes to mind, the documentary I watched recently was about the Woodstock being redone, the new Woodstock. And again, how much of a disaster that was.
Oh, you mean the 99 one?
Yes, absolutely.
The new metal one? So you're watching the, what's it called, like Netflix disasters.
Yeah, basically, that they got me. Yes, they got me. I can't remember like the best compelling documentary that I've seen in a long time.
So music festival docs with a porta potty situation.
Yeah, that's basically if people are, if feces is spilling onto the ground, that is my documentary.
While Korn's playing, right, Chris is there pumping his fist.
Yeah. And I hope somebody gets crushed by a piece of equipment. Like, it's got to happen. So
that's a crazy segue because my pick is also a music doc. So the most recent one I've seen that I loved is Sly Lives, or the History of Black Genius by Questlove, drummer of The Roots. Incredible documentary. I think it just won a few Emmys recently about Sly and the Family Stone. But what led me to be like, I got to watch that is his previous doc, Summer of Soul, is probably the best music documentary ever made.
Right.
It won the Oscar for Best Doc. Not enough people have seen it. It's on Disney Plus. But essentially, there was like a Soul Woodstock that happened in the 70s where everybody's like, that was an incredible concert, but all the footage and audio of it went missing. And they found it 30 years later in a shed. And then Questlove puts together like the entire history of this. You get to see some of the performances. It is incredible. And I cannot recommend it enough as a follow-up to the Woodstock 99 documentary.
Right. That is, which was good. That it's an interesting, kind of allusion to the stringer that we're going to talk about later. And clearly you love Questlove and I like feces. So with that, let's get on with the PetaPixel podcast.
Jesus, what a transition.
So the PetaPixel podcast today is a really good one, and it is brought to you by Excire, their Photo 2025 standalone program. This is pretty fantastic. I mean, I do want to mention Excire does also make Excire Search 2025, which is just a cool plugin for Lightroom, which has a lot of the same AI tools, but it's really Excire Photo 2025 that takes it further. It gives you powerful AI-based tools to organize your photos, to find photos, to cull photos. It's a really powerful thing. Jordan, what do you like about it?
I mean, I just love the fact that this is a use of AI that makes your life easier and is not making, just creating garbage to attempt to replace you. I hate going through photos. So one thing I really love with this is I'm always like, oh man, I took that photo a while ago and I try to remember the year and date, which is how I organize stuff. Not so with Excire. I could just punch in there like, you know what? I know it was like a relaxing on the beach kind of photo. Punch that into my prompts. Boom. There's that thing that I was looking for and a whole bunch of similar photos if I wanted to. I mean, generally, I'm going to be looking for things with the same kind of theme, but then you can also expand that to people in your library. You can tag a person, be like, hey, this is Brad. I love looking at pictures of Brad. No problem.
You love your Brads.
All my Brad
love
pictures.
Your Brads. Oh.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can also just say like, on this date, what are the pictures of people smiling and things like that if you're an event photographer, just to really, really streamline that. And then just straight up, you can have Excire say like, this photo's bad. It's blurry. I don't like it. And you can just say, find me all the bad photos, put a little red dot on those, and I never have to look at them ever again, as opposed to manually clicking through them. Thank you, Excire.
We just came back from Costa Rica, Jordan and I have thousands of bird photos. And man, having something to speed up the culling process would have saved me hours and hours and hours. So an absolute use case for where this could be fantastic. But yeah, there's lots of fantastic stuff. There's automatic keywording, there's GPS search, there's duplicate image search. It really is a program that makes your life a lot easier. So if you want to save time, if you want to use AI but still keep control as a photographer, this is a great way to do it. And we should also mention, so first off, there's always 14-day free trials of Excire Photo 2025 or Search 2026. So you can try it out, see if it works for you.
Try it out, find Brad.
Absolutely. Available for Mac and Windows as lifetime licenses when you're ready to commit. And there's a special discount right now, 30% off the order until December 7th. So you want to get on this. Just put in PetaPixel 30. I mean, there's lots of Black Friday stuff going on right now. So 30% off, huge Black Friday sale. Don't miss it though. December 7th is when that ends.
Great. Thanks to Excire for sponsoring this episode of the PetaPixel podcast. Let's bang through some news.
Yes.
Top line news this week is that the company that brought you the Kodak Camera, Rito, they announced the Kodak Snapic A1. It's a $99 film camera with a fixed lens, fixed aperture, and fixed shutter speed. But it has a double exposure switch, which lets you make double exposures more easily. And it's $99. It has glass elements in the lens. That's kind of neat.
That's amazing. It doesn't look... I mean, look, I'm sure for $100, it's going to reek of plastic toy. It is very light, but it looks pretty slick, actually. Like it looks like they've done a good job with the molding, with the logo and everything. I mean, it does look pretty flash. Comes in both a dark gray or like a white, and fixed shutter speed, but you have a little flash built in, an actual proper flash. 25 millimeter f9.5 lens. That's interesting. Wider than you would normally get.
25 was an interesting choice. It's not a common focal length at all.
I dig it.
I don't dislike it. Yeah.
Yeah, for the group shots, baby.
Yeah. Basic zone focusing with 25 mil, you're going to have so much depth of field. So you basically got like a near or a far setting for focus. But, I think it's going to be a fun little camera. I would actually play with this one.
Good.
I think people have been clamoring for this.
Damn it.
Well, I mean, yeah, we look at a lot of the, kind of handmade new film cameras. You're looking like that $800 to $1,000 kind of range. This is like a good Christmas present price, and it still gives you a little more creative flexibility than a disposable camera. And like Jaron said, you're getting a glass element, double exposure, you can focus. I think it's a good call.
On that note, it's actually going to be out in time for Christmas. I think they want to have this hitting the shelves like the first week of December.
Yeah.
So
Well, we're getting it for Christmas.
They would
Be
theoretically
prepared.
love it if like someone's stocking had this and a charmer in it. They would love that. By the way, you mentioned the two colors. They went really pachydermy with these colors. One is rhino gray and the other is ivory white. So
Perfect. Rather than killing an elephant or a rhinoceros, you can just buy one of these cameras. It's amazing.
Those are the only two options.
That's the only two options you have. That's it.
jeez.
Our next story is interesting because the Associated Press is switching over to DaVinci Resolve to do all of their video editing. But
Well,
we are
after the recent documentary, I don't know how I feel about them.
I know. We're going to be talking about the AP quite a bit here, so you don't want to miss it. But just again, a little bit of foreshadowing. But how do you feel about this, Jordan? I mean, you don't use DaVinci Resolve, but you have used it. What do you think about this move?
I mean, I think it makes a lot of sense. It's definitely the way that the industry is going, and I'm constantly waffling. Like, is this the year? As soon as that hole in my schedule opens up to learn DaVinci inside out. So that's going to happen for sure.
That'll never happen.
But what's interesting, I find, is they're not saying what they switched from.
Yeah,
I can't see it being Avid. So I'm pretty
There's
much
no way
positive
it was Final Cut either.
No, it's Premiere. This is just another example of what we've really seen happening at a steady pace, which is DaVinci just totally digging into Premiere's user base. And I mean, the AP is massive. This is a big hit.
Yep.
Yeah.
The cracks in the dam are showing. That's the way I'll.
Do they all get studio licenses there, or are they all like, oh man, I can't import this 10-bit footage or apply
they
noise
all
reduction?
have studio licenses. I'm sure Blackmagic gave them a great group rate.
I'm sure.
Hey, let's talk about another storied institution, but this in maybe a more depressing way. Arri, famous manufacturer. Arri has made cameras and lighting and so much more for the cinema industry for decades upon decades. This famous German company, unfortunately, is announcing they're going to be cutting jobs and closing 2 locations, mostly for lighting equipment. That seems to be the focus. And Ari's trying to say, like, look, they were contemplating a sale. They were trying to get someone to buy them. I guess that hasn't really happened. They are saying that they have to streamline the business. You know what that means in marketing speak. It's sad. It's sad. They're trying to move some of the people to the Munich headquarters, but they are basically downsizing in a big way.
Yeah. They so we mentioned that, like, when you close your 2 facilities dedicated to the creation of a product, it's like, so you're either exiting or seriously downsizing. And they took issue with the implication that they would exit. So they emailed me and stated, Arri is not exiting lighting. Like many companies in the film industry, Arri is undergoing a significant transformation to address lasting shifts in market demand, while reinforcing its core strengths, and lighting remains a central pillar of our business.
Yeah.
I asked, okay, are you downsizing then? Because, like, it's kind of hard not to see that if you cut jobs and consolidate, and they said we declined to answer that question.
Right.
So,
There
yeah,
you go.
You touched on it, Chris, about them saying that they would be trying to find a sale.
Streamlining.
We were actually on the boat in Alaska when we heard this, that they were looking to possibly sell.
The mood was dire.
Yeah.
I think that might still be a thing, right? Like the main impetus for this, of course, is the fact that there is incredible plethora of high-end lighting. I know Arri's like, well, we're the highest end lighting. I get it, but there
but
is a
aperture
plethora.
exists.
Dude, exactly. There's a plethora of affordable light products that are high-end enough for almost all situations and are proving themselves to be reliable day in, day out. And that's why people are going that way. And so I see that stuff for Arri. They're still going to make their cameras. I mean, that's something they're still dedicated to making. And in that regard, those are very popular. They're an industry standard. But are they going to start like licensing their name? Is that an alternative where they just say, okay, well, we're going to make our lights in China too, but it'll have the Arri name on? I don't know that they want to do that. Doesn't mean they're not going to do that.
Well, what do you think of when you think of an Arri light, right? What are the ones that jump out?
I think of their cameras.
The really big ones. The really big.
Yeah, M18s. Are
Sure,
like your
giant,
classic movie lights and sky panels. And what have we seen the Chinese just knocking out of the park in the last 5 years? They've really given up on like consumer basic lights. It's massive single point lighting sources and sky panel style, very high output
At a fraction of
panels
the price.
with RGB support.
At a fraction of the price.
Exactly. I mean, so that makes perfect sense. These are still the benchmark. Like when we're going around NAB, it's like, oh yeah, this is 3/4 the output of an M18, or this is twice the output of a sky panel. That is still the speak that everyone in the industry uses, but no one's actually buying or renting them anymore because they are extremely expensive. There's alternatives. There's alternatives to an Alexa, but nothing that performs quite as well, where that's not quite the case in lighting.
Moving on, the Leica M-EV1, which
Finally available.
wasn't available in the U.S. at announcement due to the closure of the U.S. government, the shutdown. They were not processing FCC licenses, so that didn't get imported immediately. Well, that finally happened, and yesterday, as of recording, so November 24th, you can get it now if you want one.
It's flowing into the States now. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Jaron, do you want one?
No, not particularly.
You don't want one? Watch our episode. That might help you decide if you want one. We did review it. Yeah.
I did. I watched it.
No, I'm saying to the public.
Oh,
you
I would much rather
You have to. It's your
an
job to
M11.
watch all the videos. But,
It is. I do. I watch your face. Yeah, I'd rather have an M11. That's just for me.
Okay,
I like rangefinders.
Absolutely. But it's a contentious camera worth looking at. Speaking of contentious stories, man, do we have a contentious story for you coming up? We talked to Matt Grokut about the stringer.
It does indeed involve Leica. But before we get there, this week Leica announced the Q3 Monochrom, and it is probably the least popular Leica video you guys have made. Like as far as like people giving a crap, like people aren't watching it to the levels that they watch other Leica videos. Why do you think that is?
Because it's old news. Like, Leica is the one company that has absolutely dedicated itself to making a monochromatic version of most of their high-end cameras, right? Other people, well, when we say other people, I was even thinking about, has anybody else done it other than Pentax? Like, I don't know.
Ricoh's
maybe
about to.
Ricoh's about to.
Ricoh is maybe going to. Like, that would make a lot of sense if they did that.
No, they said they will. They already announced
great.
it. It's coming.
Great. But nobody else is good. Nikon's not going to do it. Sony's not going to do it. Fujifilm will never do it. I don't think, because they don't want to. But they don't want to because they've got all
Silly
the
gooses.
simulation modes, But they could do it too. But yeah, I think it's just old news for Leica. Nothing really changes as far as the camera goes, other than the monochromatic sensor. But their monochrome cameras do give you substantial improvements in image quality. It's still a fantastic camera to use in a lot of ways. It's still an uncomfortable grip. And if you want one, you know that you want one. And if you don't, that's fine.
I want one.
So I got it. So I got an email from Greg related to black and white, and he emailed and said that, "Hi, Jaron. Hope all is well. I just picked up a Leica M9 monochrome, and I think I may have found my forever camera. What blows me away is it actually has a raw histogram. The strange thing is Leica's later monochrome cameras do not have this feature. I was wondering if you and your team could figure out why this might be. I mean, if the code to the raw histogram was cracked way back in 2012, why would we not have it today?"
Yeah. I don't know why they don't do that. Are we sure they don't do that?
So here's like a black and white camera, the histogram's extremely accurate because
Yeah.
what my issue with a regular Bayer JPEG-based histogram is it doesn't tell you the clipping point of your RAW files. So I always try to make things as bright as possible without blowing out any important information. That's the best way to get the cleanest image quality. But if you're looking at a JPEG histogram, the JPEGs blow out way before your RAW files do. So you're always struggling with that. One of the nice things with a black and white sensor is, well, and one of the big downsides actually, is it has a hard clipping point. You clip on that black and white sensor, when its histogram is maxed out, you've blown things out. So effectively, you're still working off the JPEG, but all of those black and white cameras are going to give you an extremely accurate histogram.
Yeah, so is his assertion here, that's what I was asking, I guess, is his assertion that their later monochrome cameras don't have a histogram true?
I honestly would have to test that because, like when you go into these monochrome cameras, you still have the option of using, like if you're shooting RAW and JPEG, which I always do, you still have the option of using a different black and white profile for your JPEG. And some of those profiles will be more contrasty, will already naturally have pushed up highlights and drop down shadows and crushed blacks. And so is the histogram portraying that? I think it is. Yeah, so it's not that. I mean, it's helpful from a standpoint of I don't want to blow my JPEG, but you're not maximizing the dynamic range potential of the RAW file underneath it. I don't know. I feel like manufacturers don't want to show the RAW histogram because they feel it will confuse the user, maybe because users don't necessarily understand or appreciate how you can expose RAW files to maximize dynamic range. But then at the same time, they're not giving you the tools to let you accurately maximize the dynamic range of your camera in RAW mode. So yeah, I don't know.
We've been complaining about this for a long time. Phase does it. I mean, you've played with one phase camera since ever. And yeah, you got a histogram that tells you the hard clipping point. And I love what Red does, where it's like, here's your clipping point, and then your histogram is just levels with colors. Like, okay, as it starts to get into the blue and the red, that means your shadows are noisier and noisier and noisier, but it's telling you there's still information there. And that's how it should work, honestly.
There has to be a better system, because, otherwise you'd have to have control of switching between RAW or JPEG histograms. I know that would probably confuse a lot of people, right? Or you'd have the wrong one selected, or like obviously it's not a perfect system. So but
the rationale for not providing something that gives you more information because it might be confusing if you were to provide two, I don't buy. Like,
especially on a Leica monochrome.
Trust
who doesn't
your
understand
users.
raw exposure? Who's buying an $8,000 camera?
You should never trust users, Jaron. You're crazy.
I think you should give them the benefit of the doubt, and to say no, we're not going to give it because it might confuse some people, I think is harmful to to users. All right,
dude.
So moving on. This morning, as of recording, Panasonic announced some major updates to both the S1 II and 2E and the S1 R2. And the top line major update here is that recording limits have been dramatically improved. I have a chart
in terms of thermals.
Thermals, that's right. Yes. Before they would shut down from overheating. The biggest improvements actually came for the S1 R2, which got serious boosts. The best way to describe this, as they all are, is you need to go read the article because it breaks down.
It's a lot.
There's a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Cinema 4K, for example, is the one that they focus quite a bit on. So Cinema 4K at 120, Cinema 4K at 60. Those things got serious boosts to how long you can do it. I don't know why you would want to record for as long as you can now in Cinema 4K 120, but you get a lot of time. I think. Doesn't it feel like it's like unlimited, or it's an hour? It's an hour at 120. I don't know why you do that.
If that bird is sitting on the branch for an hour without taking off, you've burned through a lot of memory and you're very frustrated, but at least your camera won't cook now.
Yeah.
Oh, it'll be hot.
They made other improvements too, right? I'm sure have you tried this, Jordan?
I have. I wanted to talk about that.
Go for it.
Initially, this wasn't in the news. I was going to talk about it and what you're up to, but I have updated it. And my biggest pet peeve with Panasonic's interface, I hate the head with the crosshairs on it.
Yes.
I think it looks stupid.
Autofocus.
It's distracting. And then if you've got a bunch of heads, now you've got a bunch of floaty boxes and crosshairs on them, and it's distracting. It's just not intuitive. And now they've gone with I was going to say Sony style, but the style of every other camera manufacturer out
more
there.
Rectangular box. Yeah. Little yellow box on a person's eyes. Yeah,
exactly. Yellow. And also now you can have it select so it doesn't highlight currently it shows you every potential subject you can track. So if you've got like a pond full of birds, all you see are boxes, and with one little yellow box, which sucks. Now you can turn it so it just shows you which object is selected. You can still click through them if you want to, and you might not know if it's detected it as a subject, but that's pretty rare. So for the most part, I would say these are huge improvements. You can still use the old interface if you want to, but yesterday, I didn't even talk to Chris about this while I was filming him, but just having the eye showing up there while he was talking rocked. Yep. That was really
nice.
And
it's only been like 10 or 12 years that we've been asking for this. Like, so
wait, this isn't the new default, though, is it? You have to select.
It isn't. No, you do have to turn it in. Turn it on.
Turn it on.
I could tell you where if you want a vamp. Here we go.
Vamp?
Focus shutter mode 2. You've got human eye detection and display multiple detected subjects on and off right beside each other. So those two new modes right there for you.
Awesome. Great move.
But
awesome. Thank you.
In very Lumix fashion, it's not the default, just like very many other things you should change when you get your camera.
Yeah, exciting improvements are always buried in the menus and must be manually enabled.
There you go.
Everybody needs to update their defaults.
So there's lots of stuff that came in this. This is actually a rather significant drop of updates. Yeah. It's worth it. So if you've got an S1 II, S1 IIe, or an S1 R2, you're going to want to check this out. The update will be available starting today. When I checked this morning, it wasn't up yet, but it should be up today. So and Jordan confirms that it works. So there you go.
I did not brick my camera.
That's great. Excellent news. Also this morning, Laowa announced a 35mm f2.80D tilt shift half macro lens that apparently does everything. Like it's a lens for everything you could possibly want to do.
Yeah, except be compact in your camera bag. But yeah, like this is an exciting lens, like 35mm, whatever. F2.8, not going to be terribly fast, right? But tilt shift are fun. You know, normally a lot of tilt shift lenses, you tend to get ultra wides or very wide. So this is definitely a more usable, normal kind of range for when you don't want that incredibly expansive perspective, but still want to shoot like architecture and things like that, where you definitely don't want your lines converging. So that's cool. The half macro, you know, so that's not a huge kind of macro capability. They do show some sample photos here. I think it just happens to be able to focus quite close. So why not do it? But, you know, you could do some product shots where you lay your depth of field a little bit more across a flat surface or something, but I primarily see this being used as a walk around architecture kind of lens.
Walk around.
Yeah, I think you could do some really cool close up. Like you mentioned, just shifting that, or tilting it rather, because that's what I find so compelling about this is we've seen tons of shift lenses from the Chinese manufacturers, not a lot of tilt shift.
Correct.
So it's nice to see that. If this thing is actually optically good, that's really exciting because no one's making original mirrorless tilt shift lenses.
Right?
I think Fujifilm is for GF. Is that possible?
On that note, this has a large enough image circle for the GFX and XCD series, so you can get it for those mounts, which is neat.
Great.
What is odd? It's available for Sony E, Canon Z, and Canon RF. It doesn't work on the modern L-mount Panasonic cameras. It won't. It won't work with the S5 II, S1 II, the S1 R2, the S1 IIe, or the S5 IIX. Sorry, the way that Laowa wrote this on their website is exceptionally confusing. Like no one refers to it as an S1 M2 or an S1 R2 or an S1 M2e. So I had to my brain had to retranslate those. But it doesn't work with the modern generation of them. Probably, I think maybe it's the distance, the flange back distance or something. But it doesn't work with those.
Very odd because Sony is deeper than L. That's weird. But,
it's very weird.
Yeah, maybe it has something to do with the stabilization in the new ones. Who knows? But I do think this is a nice thing to see just because everybody's relying on old DSLR designs if they want to do this kind of work. So let's get some original mirrorless first designs coming out.
Sure.
I think this is a good step.
I agreed. All right, two more. The first one here is that Fujifilm has teamed up with a Japanese artist to produce a limited edition GFX 100 RF that is shiny black and looks awesome.
Oh, okay. I like the chrome still. If I had to pick between them, I'd go chromey.
But it's interesting.
You're into the
You're
black?
wrong, but it's interesting.
Yeah,
Okay. I get that a lot.
Okay, I don't know if you're wrong. But like there is a black version that you can get, right? So there's a standard glossy black. This is going for like a polished kind of mirror effect, and it has limited edition. It's pretty understated though. Like I think it's cool, great limited edition. But my first reaction was like, fine. Like it doesn't really show off. I don't know. I'm being grumpy about it because I just feel like it's cool. It's a limited edition. If you want to have it, great. But it doesn't look that much different than a black GFX.
There is one more thing in here that makes it special.
A custom recipe.
It comes with a built-in custom film simulation called Fragment Black and White. It has apparently stronger grain, tweaked highlight and shadow tone curve, reduced sharpness, less noise reduction, and simultaneously more clarity, and a bit of positive exposure compensation. So I don't think you can get this film simulation any other way than by having this camera.
But you could make it yourself.
You could try and make it yourself, yeah.
I mean, it looks chunky. It's got blown highlights. I mean, it's cool. Look, it's like if it's a limited edition, the fragment edition, if you want to get it, I mean, I don't think many people would buy it and then go use it.
Well, that's good because not very many people can get it. It is only available in Japan via lottery. That lottery will start on December 20th. This camera will be retailing for 998,000 yen, which is about $6,300 at current exchange rates. That's a significant premium over the $5,272 that it typically costs there. So,
but hey, look, I'm all for it. Make all the limited editions. I hope it sells really well and they make other ones like, maybe the GFX 100R can become kind of like a Leica where you have all these prestigious kind of versions. But again, it's, I don't know. This one didn't blow my mind.
I like it when my camera looks good and I like it when cameras have style. I mean, this about when we saw the wood on my TX1, we're like, bring that back, bring that good looking stuff back.
If they put a wood handle, like a walnut handle on this camera, I would be like, that's awesome. Everybody should buy it. Do it now.
Camera of the year.
Camera of the year. Yeah, I'm just saying this is cool for the local market. People who are really into this musician or photographer will kind of dig this, be like, oh yeah, let's do it. But do I get excited about it? Not really. So that's fine. All
right, last story. The world's biggest walk-in large format camera, the Imago, is for sale. This camera was originally made in the early 1970s and it only lasted a few years before the paper that is required to use it stopped being produced. To put this in perspective, you walk into this thing, the camera and the studio are one unit. You take the picture of yourself, you fire it yourself, and it exposes you onto a sheet of photosensitive paper, and then it is a life-size, one-to-one picture of you.
It's awesome. It's basically the world's greatest black and white photo booth.
Yes.
Yeah, and the lighting inside is really cool. So it's all sort of pre-set up, and it really does give you can do like a nice backlight behind your subject, very sort of dramatic lighting on people. The shots are quite beautiful. I really do dig the aesthetic that it achieves.
So it was originally developed by physicist Werner Krauss, and it's a huge camera. It measures 6 by 8.5 by 3.9 by 3.55 meters and has an optical system made specifically for it.
It has a giant electronic box attached to it, basically, with all the power banks. It's pretty wild.
Yeah. It takes giant selfies. The camera was disassembled and put into storage in the 70s. It was dug back out of storage in 2005 by Werner's daughter, Susanna, who rebuilt it, convinced the paper manufacturer to make the paper again. It was Ilford, I believe. They agreed, and she traveled with the camera for several years after that, taking it places and taking portraits, and it has then lived at a home for it in Germany since like the early 2010s.
And now PetaPixel is going to buy it.
Well, Susanna passed away earlier this year, and now the camera really has no caretaker or home. Right. So her sons are looking to give it a new home, and it's for sale. I asked them, do you have a price in mind? Actually, during the podcast recording today, they got back to me, and said, we haven't really put a price on it. We want people to come tell us what they think they'd pay for it.
Right.
Mainly
$36, and I will podcast from inside of it.
It's very large. It takes up a ton of space. When you have it set up, it requires maintenance and work. The paper is probably very expensive. So it's a really cool thing, though.
To quote the sexiest archaeologist of all time, it belongs in a museum. So that's where I want it to go.
That would be neat if a museum picked it up and, did portraits with it on occasion. Yeah. But yeah, there you go. Link to that in the description below. I hope they find a good home for it. And with that, we're going to move to the discussion on the stringer, the man who took the photo. Before we get into it, I do want to read the synopsis for everyone, just so that they have an idea of what we're getting into. Here's the synopsis from Netflix, which, by the way, you can watch The Stringer on Netflix starting November 28th. Here we go. A former Saigon photo editor reveals a secret he's been plagued with for 52 years, setting off a gripping 2-year investigation into the truth behind one of Vietnam War's most iconic photographers. Director Bao Nguyen, I think it's Nguyen.
It's Nguyen, yeah.
Bao Nguyen follows acclaimed conflict photographer Gary Knight and journalist Fiona Turner, Terry Lichtenstein, and Laowa as they embark on a relentless search to locate and seek justice for the man known only as the Stringer. Lots to discuss with this, so let's get to it. All right, we're joined by Matt Grokut. He's our... Chris wants me to say senior British correspondent.
Senior British correspondent.
He's actually one of the senior editors at PetaPixel. He's responsible for a lot of our culture coverage, and he has been following the story about the Stringer and Nick Ut since we found out about it, that this documentary was even coming out, which was like, what, in January, Matt?
It was January, yeah. It was the AP actually revealed it. It was a preemptive strike.
Right. Because this movie was going to be at Sundance, so they knew there was no avoiding it. So we knew that there was an investigation going on and that the AP said they were conducting their own, that sort of thing. So you've been following it since then. It's been many, many months. For those who are watching and listening, if you don't want to be spoiled on this film, which I know is difficult because the concept of the film is pretty obvious from the very beginning, but if you don't want to hear any of that and you want to watch this movie without any input from us, I recommend you skip this and come back to this after you've watched it. There's a lot to discuss about this, so we're going to talk about the movie in a vacuum, and then we're going to discuss a bit more because there's a lot of stuff that went on behind the scenes that's worth breaking down, and Matt will definitely take the lead there. So all four of us have seen the movie. We got screeners of it from Netflix. So let's...
I do want to say, like, I listen to a ton of movie podcasts, and everyone's always saying, like, oh, I just watched my screener or whatever. This is the first time I've had a screener. I'm going to chase this dragon now. So if you work for a major studio, like, I'll talk about your movie on the podcast. I don't care. I just want early access to films. This rocked. Sorry, continue.
I think it's also important to point out, as we go through this conversation, Jaron and Matt have been researching this story quite a bit. They've been looking at other information and stuff. And Jordan and I have just seen the screener. And so I think it'll be good because we're kind of coming from a perspective of just having watched the documentary and how that sort of reaction is elicited versus knowing more of the backstory. So I think this will be an interesting conversation to kind of see all sides and different opinions.
And that's how most people are going to watch the documentary.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Unless you watch this first.
Which I don't know. I don't know if I recommend it. I don't know. I'm mixed on it.
We'll get there. We said that's kind of the last thing we want to discuss is after all this, which is funny because we said, like, skip it if you haven't watched it yet. And then at the end,
but now I'm not like, I don't know how many people are actually going to do that. I don't know. Okay. So the movie is coming out on Friday, November 28th on Netflix. So if you have a Netflix subscription, you can watch it. It's called The Stringer, the Man Who Took the Photo. And so let's talk about this movie in a vacuum. I don't know, Matt, why don't you start since this is your expertise. What did you think of the movie? The documentary.
Well, I enjoyed the movie, film, documentary. I enjoyed it. I mean, it is quite gripping. And if you're interested in press photography, if you're interested in history or the Vietnam War, it is fascinating. And I think people who lived through that photograph being published are going to watch it because it was a big deal, that photograph. But even people of younger generations, they know that photo. It's kind of like the untold story behind it, right? And there are probably going to be people who watch it who don't actually know everything about Kim Fook and Nick Wu, and they're going to find out a lot about the photo. So just that element is interesting. Yeah. I have problems with some of the claims made in the documentary, but I guess we'll get to that later. But yeah, it's a really good watch for sure. It's worth an hour and 40 minutes of your time.
Yeah. My wife and I watched it together, and she enjoys documentaries too across many different kinds of subject matter. And you don't have to be a photographer or be into journalism to really enjoy the story. It is like it is well done. It is done in, I think, I feel like a very classic sense of, as you say, Matt, like gripping the audience. And it does obviously push an agenda that the documentary makers are very passionate about. I do feel like, my impression overall as we go through it is like, I feel like the film obviously is pushing an agenda, but it still feels a little bit dubious, I have to say. Like, watching the film, I was kind of thinking the whole way through, like, oh, that seems a little funny, or why did they kind of leave that out, or, where is this going, or like, there's some like holes and gray areas that I was kind of like, well, that seems a little bit pushed or forced. So I kind of got that feeling throughout watching the film. Regardless, yeah, it still tries to grab you and make you feel a certain thing about a group of people in the film.
So I think we're kind of talking around it, but the core premise of this documentary is, Nick Ut is a very famous photographer for taking this picture, won a Pulitzer, all kinds of awards for it. It is iconic. And the documentary asserts he did not take that photograph. That is the primary point of it, that it was actually a stringer who didn't work for one of the news agencies who took that. So they attempt to get to the bottom of this. And yes, they very strongly assert that it was a photographer named Nay who took this picture, track him down. And yeah, I do think they come in very specifically like, look, they have some information like, hey, this photo was not taken by him. They talked to someone who worked at the AP who says this has always haunted them. And then go trying to find out more information on it. But very early on, it's like, there's no question about the veracity of those claims, really. They're just taken at face value right off the top, and then we go from there. I mean, it's a nice way to have a very clean narrative in your documentary, because if you take all sides, you wind up with Ken Burns documentaries that are 14 hours long and incredible. And it does use a lot of modern documentary tricks. I mean, the tone is determined by the music in the scenes and things like that. It tells you how to feel consistently through it. As a film, I find some of the evidence incredibly compelling, some of the stuff they found. Some of it I found sloppy. Like, I think specifically at the end, you can see there's some stuff that are like, newfound revelations or like the comments from the AP and stuff like that. And it feels like they kind of threw it together very quickly in the editing bay so that they'd have a conclusion. But there's some other examples too I'm definitely going to mention as we go through the documentary a little more that stood out to me. But, I love documentary filmmaking as well. And I thought it was like a competently made documentary about incredibly interesting material. And there's some video footage, context that, I've been floating around in photo video land for a long time that I'd never seen or heard from before. So that was interesting for me, for sure.
It's actually worth, Jordan, I actually want you to point out specific things that you wanted to mention. We might as well do that now because we're talking about the film in a vacuum. So,
all right.
But there is some you mentioned, and I feel like it's worth mentioning, even like just as a little bit of context. The film that's on Netflix isn't exactly the same as the one that was at Sundance, because as you mentioned, the ending is different. And we'll get into that more later, but it's mainly due to how the documentary producers handled the film leading up to its release at Sundance, and then eventually being picked up by Netflix, and as to why they had to add some stuff at the end.
it feels like a lot of kind of covering yourself legally is kind of like, instead of a strong narrative thrust at the end of the film, it feels a lot like, okay, here's some other stuff that I feel like we're obligated to throw in for context, more to cover ourselves. But yeah, I can talk about some of the weirdness in it. Like the big one that stood out to me is so many modern documentaries, they're like, we need a protagonist in this. So they got a guy, Gary Knight, who did have a documentary earlier about award-winning photographs, who's very comfortable on camera, good-looking dude, doesn't really have much to do with this. And I kept wondering, like, why do we have to, like, you know, sit and, you know, watch him driving up to the car and his thoughts and stuff like that? I felt like they could really streamline it conventionally, but it feels like a modern producer note of, like, who's our audience going to relate to in this documentary?
If you didn't know, you'd think he was the director.
Yeah, absolutely. And then he's not. And then they're like, research done by, I don't see Gary Knight there. No, his name's not there. He's essentially, like a prop in a way for this film.
Yeah. I didn't mind it personally. I see what you're saying. Like, rather than just do like the people being interviewed just as their own, telling their own story. Yeah, having this person kind of leading the audience through the narrative. I don't know. When you get into this movie, especially the start of the documentary, and I actually found the start very compelling, where they're actually building the whole story, the idea of like what this photograph is, how important it is, why it's important, and then who shot it. Nick shot it, and then you start to involve things like, well, you have the Associated Press and their sort of role, and all the other people backstory, and then the, for lack of a better term, the whistleblower, the editor at the time, who felt like, well, Nick didn't shoot the photo, it was actually Nay, and he's really like the sort of main impetus for, how do I get this story out? I feel really guilty about it. I feel like there's a lot of players and there's a lot of sort of forces and teams, and so I think maybe they chose Gary as a way to, be the audience, right? He's the stand-in for the audience. I didn't mind it personally. Matt, what were you going to say there?
He's connected into that world. So one of his mentors was Tim Page, who was a very famous photojournalist and was also big friends with Horst Fass, who obviously features in the documentary heavily. So, that's his in, I suppose. And I think he has always been aware of these claims. And I think that's why he is the one fronting the documentary.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess for me, it was weird the more I thought about it. After I got to the credits and I didn't see Gary in any of except its executive producer, I'm like, that is super strange, especially considering we also just kind of like shove in his assistants, the women whose names only appear on screen very briefly in title cards, and then they are shown to be like central figures and like trying to figure this out. I don't know who they are really. They weren't.
They say like zero things.
Yeah, it's like I know that they're
like, we've got him on the phone. Yeah,
yeah,
like, Oh, okay.
Okay. It was just like, I feel like those were all added to build up the drama, of which a lot of this movie is really centrally focused on building up this drama. And they do it in several very key scenes to try and make us, or rather cement a feeling in us that they've, as Jordan mentioned, trickled into the back of our subconscious through music and specific ways of shooting certain scenes. And it's beating you with this so that when you walk away from this movie, you do not think that Nick Ut took this picture. That's, right. I mean, that is obviously the goal from the very beginning, and I think 100%. It is quite successful at doing that, despite the fact that if you...
Nye is the true author.
Yeah. Correct. I think it succeeds in that endeavor through all of these things, and it works really well if you don't think about it too hard. Right. Which is how a great movie will work for a wide audience.
Yeah, filmmaking's manipulative. That is part of it, for sure.
Yeah.
I think the main thing is, like, they kind of say, like, well, Nick is a victim in this just as much as anyone else, is kind of the line they throw out there. And it's like, that he didn't make the decision to switch out the picture there.
Except by the end of the movie.
But there is some serious, like, character assassination stuff going on. Like, the one that was most egregious to me is where they're like, Nick, gave this girl some water and brought her to the hospital. And they're like, but did he really? And then there's like one throwaway. And that's not relevant to the story that they're trying to tell anyways. That's just like, it's not about who captured the photo. It's just like, is he kind of a dick?
Just to prove that he's a liar.
Yeah, exactly. It seemed completely unnecessary to me.
Yeah, it is funny. They do start with, oh yeah, he's a victim, but then through the rest of the movie and by the end, they make him out to be a villain. Yes. And it to me felt really disingenuous.
Yeah. And the opening line of the film as well, what you do know is what you didn't take. I mean, that's a direct shot at Niku.
Yeah, for sure. That whole phone conversation felt really weird, where they just kind of throw Gary. It just kind of cuts to Gary saying like, "Well, Nick is a victim in this too." I think we have to remember that. But it did feel very. It felt almost like an afterthought, where they're like, "Hey, we should record this because we might be coming across as like a really, really, direct on this." So, let's put a bit of ambiguity in there. Yeah, it felt there was a lot of trip ups in the film. Watching it, it went from very compelling to like, oh wait, hang on, that seems strange. Tonally, it seems strange. It seems a little disingenuous. I kept getting that feeling throughout the film multiple times. Where I didn't get that feeling was through the actual forensic research that they do. They hire this company, this French company that does sort of photo forensics, to then basically take a look at the footage and the video that was shot at the time and everything like that. And so that I actually found very compelling. It was very well done. I'm not saying it was accurate. I'm saying it was very compelling.
Yeah.
You watch through it and you're like, oh, that does make sense. Oh, he does look like,
right.
Just
for
frame
context. It quite well. They frame it
they frame it so that Nick is basically physically separated from the area by a distance that he could never have actually taken the photo, and that Ney was indeed right there in a position to shoot. I don't think anybody's necessarily disputing that. But they really do plan it out with like diagrams, 3D modeling, distances. He would have to have been like a sprinter to get there and then back and then there again. Like, it's just very implausible. And the way they present it is very effective for the viewer, for sure.
And that was meant to be the crescendo of the film.
Yeah.
And the extra bits they've had to add on because of subsequent reactions and more information that has come out. But I think that was supposed to be the big smoking gun at the end. This is it. This is irrefutable proof.
Mm-hmm. So I think that's actually a good transition to let's specifically talk about that, Matt, because you have issues, right, with the reconstruction that they made based on like what you know.
Well, it's an analog age. It's 1972. There are no timestamps. There is no metadata. And so in the reconstruction, they point out the figure that's coming up the road in the ITN footage, and they said, well, if that's Niku, there's no way that he could have been down the road to take the Napalm Girl photo. But they do say after there was a cut in the footage, in the ITN footage, and so there's a cut. And then the next shot, Niku appears, and it looks like he's come from that same direction. So it looks like that figure is the same guy. Now, there's no doubting that there wasn't that much time in between those cuts, right? But we don't know how long that cut was, right? So we don't know whether it was 30 seconds or 2 minutes or 5 minutes. And I think they sort of just gloss over that and just take it for fact that it was almost immediate. So I kind of take issue with that, because I think that's the real crucial bit where it's like, oh, there's, he was definitely too far away. So yeah, I take issue with that. The satellite photo as well that they use, that's taken 5 months after June 1972. So, things could have changed. If you look at the satellite photo as well, it's so bare. There are hardly any landmarks on the road. Like, they're using puddles as markers. I mean, that is an inexact science. And the distances as well that they talk about, there is a high margin of error. Because there's one shot and they go, oh well, here's Niku, and he's like 500 meters away or something like that. But I look at it and think, well, he could be a little bit close. It's really difficult to tell the distance between where the journalists are and the temple in Trang Bang where it's just been napalmed. So yes, I'm not saying that what they've done is completely inaccurate, but they also can't say for certain that it is 100% accurate. You know,
but they act like it is. Like that's how they present it. That this is irrefutably the way it was. There's other aspects of this that we're not considering. Like if you just watch the film too, which is they make the assumption that Kim just beelines down that road. She's running at top speed as much as she can, when they actually show a bunch of other pictures that shows her like coming off to the side of the road, going off to the other side of the road, coming back to the side of the road. Like she's not just straight sprinting down that road. She's every group she comes up to, she's stopping. So like that whole thing where they do the math on how much distance had to be covered while Kim had to cover X amount of distance. I mean, the time just doesn't line up. That's what they come up with. But it's like you're making really strong assumptions about Kim's speed too.
Yeah.
This whole recreation is really what the AP, the Associated Press, had a major issue with, right? This is what they then came back after the film and after the evidence was revealed to them. And you know, Gary says he went and he talked to them and they were going to absolutely look into it, research it, do their own kind of study on it. And then they did their own study, looked at this evidence. And I think that was the main thing they had was like, the evidence that was presented had a lot of gray areas. There was a lot of stuff that's maybe missing or that has to be assumed to work properly. And that was their major issue is like, we reviewed it. We don't think it's really that definite. And that was an issue for them.
One thing that they really didn't focus on that surprised me, I think kind of the smoking gun is the camera and the lens, and they kind of breeze over top of that. We can recreate what focal length something was shot at. That is something that can be done. You know, something is off at this distance. This is the perspective. This is the geometry of a lens. We can figure that out. And they're like, and they analyzed the film, and they were like, this was shot on a Pentax with a 50 millimeter lens. Nick Ut claimed it was shot on his Leica with a 50. So
with
right
a 35,
there,
with a 35, yes.
Oh, sorry, I have it backwards. Yeah,
Nick claimed it was with a 35.
But yeah, right there, that's something that I think is much more worth going into.
Right,
and they kind of breeze over it.
Yeah.
And then at the end, they're like, also, Nick Ut said his brother had a Pentax that he always carried with him. But I mean, yeah, that right there is like that would be much more worth getting into in my mind.
Right.
But the documentary just kind of passes right through it.
Matt, you've definitely got something you want to say to that.
The reason for that is because it's actually AP's report that flagged the camera. So it wasn't actually the documentary makers who found that out. It was AP analyzing Nick Ut's Leica, which had been donated to the museum in Washington, D.C. And they shot a bunch of photos through it, and they analyzed the gate and what it does to the negatives. And they found that basically Pentax rounds the negative slightly, and that is consistent with the two negatives that they still have that was shot of Napalm Girl. And, you know, if you look at the footage, and Nick Ut has always said this, he was carrying two Leicas and two Nikons that covered all his focal lengths. It seems really unlikely that he did shoot it with a Pentax. And I think that is the most compelling piece of evidence.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And of course, just as a side note, it may be obvious, but Nay is actually that stringer is using a Pentax with a 50 millimeter lens, which would be consistent then with him taking the shot. Yeah, there was a few pieces of evidence that they kind of chuck in that I feel the audience largely forgets about. You know, they do a lot, as Jordan said, with Nick Ut being sort of, did he actually take these kids in an ambulance or a truck and drive them to the hospital and stuff? And Kim Phuc's uncle says, yeah, it was Nick who did that. Other people say actually who the person who picked up these people was dressed like a civilian, had like a dress shirt on, which in the photos, Nay does have a dress shirt on with a vest over, whereas Nick is basically outfitted like a soldier. He's got a military helmet on, he's got flak jacket on, he's got his big bags, green, uniform. So yeah, there's all these little things they kind of chuck in at the start of the film, but they never really come back to it. Yeah. So, it leaves you like, how do you feel? Maybe you can give us some insight on some of the other evidence that was going on and where that sort of led you down your path, Matt.
So, the source of the information, Carl Robinson, they don't really they omit certain information about him. So if you read up about the story of the Napalm Girl before this documentary came out, it's always mentioned that a photo editor passed on the photo. Okay, and that photo editor is Carl Robinson.
Right.
Okay,
and he's the whistleblower, so to speak, of this film.
And he was overruled by Horst Fass first in Saigon, and then second by Hal Buell in New York, who they both, rightly recognized the power of the image, and it went on to have the history it did. But Carl Robinson, he still believes to this day that the photo should never have been published. He thinks that the full frontal nudity renders it unacceptable. Now, he's perfectly entitled to that view, but it does, to me, it gives him a reason for how to have an axe to grind, really. And there are little moments in the documentary where you can sort of tell that he might be a little bit bitter. He says that Horst Fass basically chucked him out of a job because Horst Fass had been in Singapore, and then a few months later he came back and he said, he just took over from my job. So I can't help but think with him that there is a little bit of resentment. He was also fired from AP a few years later for reasons that aren't exactly clear. Yeah. He literally wrote in his autobiography that he does hold a lot of resentment and bitterness, especially toward AP. Yeah. They don't talk about that at all, right?
Very little. I mean, they do. I remember one part in there where he's talking to his friend, one of the other journalists who's on his side, who's supports his assertion, and he's like, "Look, I loathe those guys. I have no love for any of the people there, right?" Like that was a little bit revealing. Like, oh, okay, this guy's got a chip on his shoulder.
They try to get ahead of the allegation that the only reason that he comes out and says this now was because everyone that could possibly disagree with him is dead. That is a major thing to talk about, but they put it in the movie as if he thought about it and that's why he hasn't said anything, is because people are just going to say it's because everyone's dead. Well, the people that you are dragging through the mud, everyone who was in the office that day, everyone who was in the film development room that day, and the guy who's the storied photojournalist, Foss, they're all dead. None of them can defend themselves. The AP can't defend itself because everyone who was in that office is also dead. Yeah. It's just very much... I mean, they try and make it seem like that's not a big deal, but that's kind of a big deal.
Yeah.
But there are a few key players who are alive, and they do not agree with him. There is there's David Bonnet, who was also on the road in Trang Bang that day. He was working for the New York Times on Newsweek. He says that Nick Ut took the photo.
But they toss aside his statement, being like, "Oh, he wasn't actually there to actually see it, so whatever. We'll just toss that. We'll put him in there, but disregard his thoughts."
Yeah, and there's also Miss Tu, who's an office secretary. They don't mention her at all, but she was like the bookkeeper, and she has unequivocally said that Horst Fass would never do that, and that Carl Robinson's claims are false, but that doesn't get a mention.
Yeah. The basic defense for Nick Ut in the film is AP looked at the evidence and finds it inconclusive, and Nick Ut has eyewitness accounts that say that he took the photograph, and that's largely how they leave it as far as defending his position. And then Carl has some photojournalist friends as well that were sort of tied to that situation that are supporting his assertion, right? So again, it really just becomes a sort of one side against the other,
It's he said, she said, right?
Believe. Uh-huh. Yeah, totally. Yeah.
So I got a question for you, Chris, and you, Jordan. After watching this movie, what do you based on what the movie tells you, what do you think the AP did? Because in response. So in the movie, Gary goes to this off the record meeting with the AP, and that's really the last time that they talk about the interaction. So what is your impression of what happened there?
I mean, we had an article a while back. I'm not coming into this in a total vacuum. We've talked about this on the podcast, and there have been articles on PetaPixel going into it.
Let's pretend you were, the movie, because this is what the most people are going to see. So just the movie, what do you think What is your conclusion?
I mean, the impression I get is basically that they just talked to the surviving people. I don't get the impression that there's any level of the same forensic analysis that the documentary shows the filmmakers doing. Is that fair?
Sure, Chris?
So if I came at it from a viewpoint of never having any context on it, watching the film, AP comes across, they certainly frame them as sort of a classic giant conglomerate, big business kind of entity that has a lot to cover up and doesn't want to admit its mistakes. And I mean, there's no denying this. I'm going to go a little bit off here, but there's no denying that if Nick didn't take the photo and let's just assume knows he didn't take the photo, then we are looking at a giant lie and a big cover up. And it goes so big that it reaches a point where you can't really turn back afterwards and say, actually, I have to admit, I never did. I mean, that's a lot, then they kind of do allude to that. It's a big lie that gets bigger that you then can't go back on because it's become so big, right? But anyways, I mean, it frames the AP as kind of this like company that has something to cover up. It frames them, at least in the context of the 1970s, as being quite racist. So it does not frame them in a nice light. And then they do throw in the world press taking back their photo award for this as well, as sort of like, look, here's another agency who is also big and very prominent and very important in the world that is on our side saying, no, we can't support this. So it really does frame the AP as a company that has something to hide.
Do you get the sense that the AP assisted or wanted to help the documentary makers in any way?
No.
Not really, no.
So, Matt, please explain what actually happened in this whole situation.
So the AP wanted access to the materials in the film basically this entire past year. They were rebuffed several times. They never got the materials from Index Investigations, who make the reenactment at the end. AP did do a thorough report. It's almost 100 pages, and they actually also made their own reenactment, which you can just look up on the internet and have a look. So if you're interested, it's kind of fascinating because you have these two reenactments. I think AP were trying to find the truth. I think, and AP's report as well, which is obviously mentioned in the documentary, they accept that Nick, who might not have taken the photo, it's basically impossible to prove. And I think therein lies the entire problem with this documentary. It's you're trying to prove something that happened 52 years ago in a completely different era that it's just impossible to nail down.
The thing that bugs me the most about this is the documentary makers make it appear as though they were trying to be forthcoming and work with the AP to tell us the truth of this story, when the reality is they were not being forthcoming. They did not give the AP what they asked for so that the AP could verify the claims, which is, to me, exceptionally disingenuous. And the way that the movie frames it makes them look like they did their best while the AP was in their giant building refusing to be on camera. And sure, maybe they were, but that also doesn't tell the whole story and makes them out to be the villain they needed them to be so that the people who made the documentary could look like the heroes.
Sure. Okay, so on that topic then, isn't that what... And I'm not... Well, yeah, maybe I'm justifying it a bit because that is kind of what a documentary filmmaker's goal is to do, right? Like, what I find so compelling about this story, even watching the documentary, as compelling as it was, because it's shot in a very competent way to make you feel a certain thing. As I say, I still throughout it was like, wait a minute, I don't know, and it's definitely not a documentary that tries to play both sides. Nobody does that anymore, right? It's a documentary that's making a claim and saying, this is what we believe, this is what we want to show. But that's what a documentary filmmaker is supposed to do, right? I mean, there's always two sides to a story, and this is them saying, this is our side, this is what we believe, this is what we want to show people, this is what we want to convince people of. And so in that regard, they do a very good job. Isn't that what all documentaries are about, is really trying to show? I mean, it's always about revealing an injustice. That's a very popular
Sure.
storyline. That's a very compelling storyline. Someone's been dealt a wrong deal, and we found evidence to show that it's not right, and we want to show that. They come from a very easy position, right? It's very easy to do that. What's so compelling to me about this, especially when you start to love photography and journalism and you get into it, is really what we're doing right now, which is seeing the other side of it, studying the other part of it. AP is a storied photojournalistic entity. I mean, they've held themselves up for, especially at that era, in a lot of cases, of being like, the press was the truth, and they really were heroes. And I do genuinely believe in a lot of these journalists being heroes in what they were doing. So yeah, it's a very interesting story, and I think the backstory is far more interesting even than the main story.
Yeah, and Horst Fass as well. He's such a legend. You know, he spent more time in Vietnam than any other foreign journalist, and he had a hand and took some of the most iconic photos from the Vietnam War. Like, do you remember the photo of the Viet Cong general being executed? Is it Eddie Adams photo? Yeah, so he, again, was instrumental in that photo being sent to the wires when, again, you know, there were some certain people who didn't want it published. He also won a Pulitzer Prize there for his own photos, and he also won World Press Photo Awards. He took that portrait of the U.S. Marine with a headband that says "War is Hell" on it. So.
And the movie goes on to make the assertion, at least put in your mind, that maybe he didn't take some of those pictures. Like, they go on and say, like, he may have bought these off from other stringers and claimed them as his own.
Yeah.
It says that, which to me is
he says Tim Page told him that, and Tim Page, he died in 2022. So
you can't double check any of this. Like that. I mean, that's rough, because both of those guys can't defend themselves. And that's a huge assertion that they sort of blow right past. I remember hearing that. I'm like, oh, whoa.
Yes, like, whoa. You just took down one of the most legendary figures in photojournalism.
Yeah. And then just kept walking. Yeah.
Would you agree that the film makes Horst Fass out to be like Darth Vader in this film? Like, there is no gray area. Yeah.
No.
Yeah. All they say about him is he was overbearing and he ate a lot and smoked a lot. Like,
and he was mean, and he was
mean, and he was a taskmaster and stuff. Yeah, like they really make him out to be this way. And I mean, at the same time, I think there is an interesting story here, and this part I did find really compelling, in that the stringer, the idea of the stringer, a lot of these photographers were local Vietnamese photographers who were basically doing this to make a living, right? And they're getting paid $20 per roll of film. In a lot of cases, maybe like. Is it fair to say that some of these people are going with great photos that are being uncredited, and they're doing it because they just needed the $20 to keep their family alive, right? Like, there is an interesting story there, which and undoubtedly, I'm sure that there is a lot of stuff that's great photography that maybe didn't win a Pulitzer, so it doesn't get the same fanfare, but we did find in magazines that was uncredited or credited to other people. I mean, I am convinced that stuff did happen, for sure.
Yeah, I think it's entirely possible, and the film plays on themes of power, privilege, and erasure, and that's a really powerful narrative. Obviously, Niku is Vietnamese, so there is that, but. Yeah, for sure. It's the Vietnam War was total anarchy and bad things. I'm sure it did happen, but and also I think Nye. I think when you see this old guy whose health is failing, and him and his entire family are utterly convinced that he has taken the photo, that's really compelling. Because he's like, why would he lie?
Right. They say that. Literally, they say that in the movie. What is what are these? Why would these people lie? They've got no reason to. I don't know. Well, as you said, the guy who is at the center of this has every reason to lie. But before, there's one more thing I want Matt to talk about. Jordan, you look like you wanted to say something, so I wanted to give you a chance.
Well, yeah, I wanted to get to kind of two primary questions, but we can definitely talk to Matt too. I would just say quickly, like, one thing the documentary really understates is this is horrifying what happened that day. Like, this is a legitimately upsetting film to watch this footage over and over again, the images and everything like that. And yeah, people aren't going to remember everything perfectly. Like, I think which camera you had with you, that's pretty, incriminating. But where you were standing at what point, like, I would never remember that. I would be freaking the hell out in that moment. And the documentary makes no attempt to, it's like everybody's like calmly sorting things out, and this is how things happened all the time. And that is not the case.
I do want to talk about that. Yeah, I think that does bring up an interesting point. I don't know if you want to talk about it right now. But
sure, do it right now. Yeah, there's one last thing after that.
That does bring up an interesting point, and we did kind of discuss this. It's like, how much would you remember? And I'm not a war photographer. Are any of you guys war photographers? I'm certainly not a war photographer. I don't know. But, it's like...
I've taken some pictures of leaves.
Yeah, so there you go.
I was a press photographer.
There you go, right? So, you may have found yourself in a stressful environment shooting. I certainly have, but not in a war zone, right? I mean, that's different, and not with the magnitude of what you're seeing and all of the mental damage that goes along with that and such. So I don't know the answer to this. This is kind of a question even for the audience listening right now, is like, part of me as a photographer is like, well, I do remember a lot of my favorite frames, that I shot that had an impression on me. I remember like where I was standing. I remember what camera I was holding in a lot of cases. I don't always remember what lens and stuff, though. I mean, the gear, less than that. But I certainly remember the moment of taking the photograph and sort of seeing it in the viewfinder. And so I was kind of curious, like, how tricky would that be? Nye in the film absolutely says, yes, I remember taking that frame. I remember seeing that and shooting it, right? As does Nick. So it's like, how reliable is that? In a war zone where you are stressed and there's a lot of stuff and you're trying to remember, how reliable is that? At the same time, I feel like I would absolutely remember if I saw a picture that I didn't take, I would personally feel like I'd be like, I didn't take that shot. You know what I mean? Like, even if it was a similar shot, I kind of remember in my head, like, oh yeah, that frame. But that's something I want to kind of discuss or leave up to the audience to discuss.
There are many images of the children that day running down the road.
Yeah.
But that frame, it is so iconic because her arms are out like that.
Yeah.
And her cousin's face, his expression.
Screaming, yeah.
He's screaming and she's screaming, and it's like a scene from hell. But I do think that brief millisecond of those expressions sort of work together, and that's what makes the image so powerful. And I think when you're running around, you might not necessarily realize you've caught that exact moment. You've captured them, but you might not realize that you've captured such a powerful moment.
When you're holding 4 cameras, there's a literal war blowing up around you. Everyone is running around. I'm with Matt, and on film, you can't check your camera. You're just shooting. You're constantly shooting. I don't know. I think Nick believes he took that picture. I do not think Nick is lying about it. I think someone told him, "Hey, Nick, this is your picture." He's like, "Oh yeah, I was there. I remember that."
Yeah, sure.
And I think Nye might really believe that he took that photo.
Correct, because he was also there and he was taking a picture. Yeah. Before I ask you, Matt, about one last thing about Nye, you've talked about this a couple of times. The bit at the end with the newspaper clipping, which was added in. Can you talk a little bit about that?
So, I don't know. I can't remember if we discussed this, but Nye says that he was given a copy of the photo in 1972.
And $20.
And with the $20. It was 8x10 print. And he took it home and he put it in the fridge. And his wife found the photo and said, "Why on earth would you bring a photo like this into our house?" And she tore it up and she threw it in the bin, right? That is... they explain that in the documentary, and that's what he says. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the documentary, his daughter says that she was going through her mum's belongings, and she found a newspaper cutting that has the picture on it. Now, it shows the picture, and she's obviously getting very upset, but you can see on the newspaper article that there's also a photo of Kim Fook all grown up, right? So it's obvious that it wasn't recent. So I actually emailed the Seven Foundation, who produced the film, and they sent me the actual newspaper clipping, and it was from 1982. It was from a Los Angeles newspaper that's now defunct. It's a very strange moment. What did you think? Did you think it was genuine?
I don't know. At that point, that whole storyline seemed that's part of what seemed very dubious, right? Is this whole concept? I mean, again, the idea is like, well, why would Horst Foss give Nye this photograph? For what reason would you give a stringer this photograph unless they took it? It makes no sense. So, well, it makes perfect sense if he took the shot, right? But then why would you give that with the intention to then credit to somebody else? Like, it's a very strange, confusing thing. And then the fact that evidence is for lack of a better term, conveniently ripped up and thrown away, really makes it very dubious. So that was one of the things I'm like, that's strange. Why even include that? I don't know that even necessarily helps your story. You know what I mean? Like, it was weird, but yeah, I don't know. It seemed very confusing, Matt.
His daughter says that she saw the photo on the fridge.
Sure.
So
on top of the fridge, yeah.
Jordan, what do you think, Jordan?
I mean, I can see a narrative like they say that was a huge point of argument, and they divorced after that. Is it possible that she later was like, "Oh, I shouldn't have torn that up. That's one of his accomplishments." The closest thing is she's flipping through the paper, sees the photo with some context, and sticks it. That's not likely, but it's possible, certainly. But I think it's used as evidence in the film while they're piling stuff on. And again, you just don't stop and think about it. Which
you accept it.
Yeah, because the entire end is just boom, 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 boom. Like, it's very disjointed, doesn't have a flow like the rest of the movie. And that's part of it.
Yeah.
So before you go into this, leads directly into the question I have for you, Matt. What they don't really discuss is that if they set up Nye as this really accomplished photographer, which would mean he's shooting war photography constantly. So his wife questioning why you would bring this photo home makes no sense. That makes absolutely no sense because he would be shooting constantly this sort of thing.
Yeah, I think the way they phrased it in the film is she was offended by the nudity and the grotesqueness of the shot. And
sure, but
I don't want this in our house. This is a horrible photograph.
Sure,
but it seems really she would rip it up and throw it in the garbage.
It feels far fetched. So Matt, this is where I would like
put this in your office and hide it. from the kids.
Exactly. Don't just immediately destroy it. Yeah. So this is where I want you to talk a little bit, Matt, about Nye's framing as a photographer, because you mentioned what other photos has Nye taken?
Yeah, so in the documentary, they flash up his certification where he was trained in America. So he joined the South Vietnamese army, and then he went to the United States, and he actually trained as a film lab technician. And I believe when he evacuated Vietnam during the fall of Saigon, he then worked at a film lab in California for the rest of his life. So he wasn't exactly like a real proper photographer. He more worked in a photo lab. So that's why I thought it was very, very strange in the documentary when they say, "Oh, Nye was the most accomplished war photographer on the road that day." That is false. That is a lie. Because you got people on the road from the New York Times, from Reuters, from AP. So that's strange. I did find it strange that they couldn't produce a single other photograph he's ever taken. Now, obviously, when Saigon fell, you had what you had on you, and you had to get on a helicopter and get out of it, right? That's how it was, okay? Because Nick did the same. He said he lost his brother's Pentax camera, or he lost some cameras, or they got stolen. So, I can believe that he wouldn't have had any photos from the Vietnam War. But, Nick Yu has gone on to have a very successful career. He's taken other well-known photos, including of O.J. Simpson at his trial, and sports and celebrity. So when you compare the portfolios, it's night and day, you know. So I that's the line about being a very accomplished war photographer. That is just wrong.
Yeah.
Not just the most accomplished on the road that day. That is a wild statement to make.
Totally. Yeah.
But
still,
if you don't think about it, it's great.
Yeah. And let's also remember, though, it is the kind of photo that, you know, even if you want to say a relatively inexperienced photojournalist,
Correct. It's possible that it's the best photo, the only and best photo he's ever taken. Yeah.
Yeah. The photo is powerful because of the moment, as opposed to like any sort of artistic composition or anything or perfect technical ability.
But the documentary setting him up as the only way that he was able to capture this was because he was so accomplished and trained is, I think, silly and disingenuous.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, absolutely.
Hopefully our discussion inspires people to watch this film.
Yeah,
it's absolutely worth
watching
so
this film. Jordan, you got something to say, but I was going to
wrap it up. I just wanted to go. I wanted to do the two questions that we're kind of building up to right now. So question one, do you think Nick took the picture?
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't know. Yeah, I know it's a cop-out, but I really don't know.
I lean no, but not based on the film, but based on AP and other investigations that I've read. I lean no, but I'm willing to believe that he did, but I don't think it's possible to prove either way.
But I think there should be a statute of limitations. I think after 50 years and all the key players are dead, it's too long to bring it up, and therefore I think he should be left to be the author.
Yeah, and that does bring up a good point, Matt. I mean, officially, the photo is still credited to Nick Ut, right? I remember AP was like, well, yeah, no, we're still, Nick Ut took the photograph, and we stand behind that 100%, right?
But it will, in the future, like it's not going to be shown. Like we've seen this at Leica presentations, right? This iconic photo and stuff like that. People aren't going to show this as one of the like examples of great photography without hesitating a little bit based on the PS button now that we have.
Yeah,
but I mean, like that's interesting. I understand one of the questions, but I was thinking about this afterwards, after the evidence that they talked about. Like Leica shows this photograph is taken on a Leica, don't they?
Yep.
Yeah.
Which is not the case now. Like I don't know. Like it is unlikely. Really stirs up some crazy stuff. And as you say, Matt, 50 years later, like
And it's part of the law of Leica and war photojournalism, for sure. And also, it was Horst Fass who told Nick Ut that it was a Leica camera that took it. Yeah. So that's a kind of awkward.
And so, Jordan, what do you think? And should you watch it?
Yeah, so I fall in the exact same way. I think there's a lot of questions there. I think that whoever took it will, always be debated going forward from this point. But yeah, it's hard to throw away, this iconic photo, and especially a person's character, the way that this documentary does. Like I mentioned, the bring them to the hospital thing. Like that's a pretty crazy accusation to throw halfway in, that he took the credit for that, and then just walk past it with one contradictory quote. And I was gelling with the documentary for the first hour and change. I think the end of it is so sloppy. As just a guy who likes film, I don't think it's a super well-made film. Like I would call it like a 6 out of 10, 2.5 out of 4 stars kind of documentary. But the subject matter is very interesting to me. So if you're listening to this podcast, you should probably check it out. Am I going to go to like my family and be like, oh man, you got to check the stringer out? No, probably not, honestly.
Not. Yeah, I actually can't separate the content matter from the actual filmmaking merits, because for me, I've been so wrapped up in this story that all I can see is what they're presenting in the documentary. So I'm probably not the best judge for that.
Should you watch it?
100%. Oh, definitely, yeah.
Yeah, I think you should too. Yeah. If anything, just to then have this conversation and consider the ramifications of what happened 50 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah,
I agree. but I also think that the title of this podcast is not sensational. I do believe that the stringer stands to destroy the reputation of Nikud, Horsfass, and the AP. I think it does that through its arguments, and it does it without really caring that it does that. And it does do some serious character assassination on people who can't defend themselves. And like, even if Nick agreed to be in this movie, they would have absolutely destroyed him if he was in this movie, no matter what. So like, I don't begrudge him for not appearing on camera or speaking about this, because like, what are you going to do? They've already made up their minds. Like, there was no benefit to appearing in the film.
Yeah, it still would have been nice to have a counter narrative, though, for sure.
Yeah,
yeah.
And yet, Nick might not have taken the photograph.
I agree with that.
Yeah, I agree.
Thanks, Matt. Appreciate you joining us. Everyone, you can watch The Stringer starting November 28th on Netflix. It is streaming. So, yeah. All right. Thanks, Matt.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you very much.
Really great to have Matt come on and talk about that with us.
What a good chin.
What?
Great chin. He's got a great chin.
Just a strong. Like, why have we kept him away from the video podcast for so long? That face, the world needs to see.
Because you
Handsome
overly
man.
sexualize him every single time. You overly sexualize him.
Great
I'm sure he'll love this. He'll love hearing
We
this.
keep him away from you, Jordan. But yes, he's very handsome, and he's also very talented, and he's a very very skilled journalist. So he did a great job on this.
Yep. So his review, by the time you listen to this, of this movie, this documentary, will be published on PetaPixel, and you can watch The Stringer again, November 28th on Netflix. And with that, we are out of time, so we're going to end with the feel-good story of the week. I just wanted you guys to know that while you were busy taking pictures,
Right.
Polar Pro was studying the blade.
Wow.
The feel-good story will make you feel bad if it goes into you.
If you don't understand that reference, it is a meme. It's like, while you were like at parties, I was studying the blade.
Exactly. Which is why I'm such a skilled ninja now.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So they've actually made a knife called the blade, and it's a photographer tool. It's a specifically photographer-oriented knife, which we'd never seen before.
It's got like a flip up M4 hex tool on it and stuff like that. It looks kind of cool. It's very pocketable. It's a small blade. I mean, it's very compact, so it's meant to just be like a small utility blade. Cut through gaff tape, paper ties, things like that, which is very handy to have on set. Clearly, you do not take this on an airplane in your
It is not
carry-on.
TSA approved. That is correct.
Definitely not. And I only point that out because I use the small rig tool. I forget what whose name is on it, but it's the multi-tool.
EDC, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, the everyday. It's very handy, and I've taken that on airplanes, and of course they'll often flag it. Not always. They'll often flag it, open it up, take a look. They'll measure it for length, and then they'll put it back and say no problem. So it is handy to have that in your camera bag at all times. This you clearly would not want to have.
If I was sent one to test, I would leave it in my bag 100%.
And it will get stolen.
traveling.
Yeah,
Yes.
by the TSA. Yeah,
Yeah.
Rightfully so. So yeah, but as someone who has studied the blade, I'm
Expand on
still, well, just years of kendo and
You've literally done it, as opposed to like
Is it kendo
figuratively.
the stick, though? Oh, there you go. Yeah.
yeah.
See-
So it's like
It's shorter than that.
it's slight. I can take this on an airplane. I have many times, just because I tell them no, it's okay. I've studied the blade.
If you just attached a hex screw and like a flathead to the back of that, you could have your own version of the blade, the photographer's blade, Chris.
It's kind of a similar color, right? Like I'm going for that sort of bronzed kind of gold.
He's been waiting to do this for years.
This is
please
not
let me
stainless steel.
unsheath my weapon
It's
mid-pod.
high carbon. I'm just saying, like,
I'm enjoying
just trying
that.
to.
Chris,
just
you've
trying
clearly studied the blade because you're pulling it out correctly. So
I'm just trying to show the veracity of my claim that I'm not just a poser, right? As someone who has studied the blade, this is a cool little knife, but I don't think I personally need it. But I don't hate it.
no, I think I would rather have a Leatherman.
Yeah,
But sure. But you know what? Cool. I have
will be-
found what?
Yeah. No, I'm just saying, I know we're trying to end this podcast, but we should point out, though, that, there's 1,000 customers. The first 1,000 customers to put a $500 order or more on the Polar Pro website will actually get one of these for free. So, if you're going to buy a bunch of filters anyways, and isn't that like one filter? Like $500, and you too could study the blade. Yeah,
it's not cheap on its own, so that's a pretty sweet deal if you need some filters.
There you
All right. Thanks, everyone, for listening to this week's PetaPixel podcast. I want to encourage you to visit petapixel.com. The Stringer review is ad-free for everyone as a preview to the PetaPixel membership. So if you want to go view that story and scroll through it, you will see no ads in it, which is a gift to you. Also, make sure to check on when we publish this podcast. We will also have published the same day on PetaPixel a giganto guide to all the best deals we found for Black Friday. That is up there as well. And then on Friday, we'll publish another one where we have specifically looked at cameras and lenses that are on sale. DSLRs and mirrorless cameras both some of them have some steep discounts. I believe the 1DX Mark II is half off, which I don't know if you want that camera, but if you do, you can get it for 50% off retail.
I wouldn't put it on my fantasy draft, that's for sure.
Okay. All right. You know what? With that, we're ending it. Thanks, everyone. We'll catch you next week. Those of you in the United States, have a happy Thanksgiving. See you later.
Bye.